When I was in high school and played a little football, and there was this one guy, Mark Mayhew, and the coach used to say he was money in the bank. Somebody that you can go to, not the greatest player, not the worst player, but very dependable, reliable, money in the bank. Now that's an expression that means something is safe and secure, and you can trust, you can depend on it, you can rely on it. But there was a point when that wasn't always the case. Even in recent history, we can remember the bank crisis of 2007, 2008, where money in the bank wasn't always a sign of reassurance as the big banks were folding and we were seeing all the loans that they were making that were based on anything, mortgages, and were just based off no paper, no docs. Everything was just collapsing all around us. So money in the bank didn't seem so secure. But even by those standards, it is still pretty secure because we have FDIC, there's Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation that, we can put up the, what is it, $200,000 to secure or something like that. 250 now, so it's all good. It wasn't always the case. One time I was watching The Rifleman. Who remembers that program? Chuck Connors. But they were instituting a bank in Lucas McCabe's hometown. And people just weren't sure that that was something they should do. Why can't I just put it in the backyard, put it in a mattress, stick it away, what's to protect it? And the big novel thing that they had to guarantee that people were secure, they had this fastest gun in the West person who would sit up on a mounted platform and look down and watch the bank all day. And if anybody came to rob it, he was sure to be able to outdraw them because he was the fastest. That was their security. Thing was, fastest draw in the West had some compatriots who remember when he wasn't so honorable and encouraged them to come in on a scheme to rob the bank. So money in the bank wasn't always a reliable thing until we got that FDIC. The history of banking is an interesting one, and it actually goes back a couple thousand years before Christ, 2000 BC. The Assyrians and the Babylonians, they all had their systems of banking. It was rudimentary. Some of it was loaning out grain, allowing you to plant your crops. And then when the Roman Empire came, they started allowing for deposits and that sort of thing and changing of money. So this is around the time of Christ when we have the Roman Empire as the control of Palestine. And so Jesus often talked a lot about money. And you'd be surprised how much he talked about money in the scriptures. We always think it's only about love and salvation and holiness and sanctity. But no, he talked about some very practical things, and one of them was money. If you were on the Daily Source of Light call on Wednesday, I began talking about the parable of the talents. And I'd like to pick up from there and start with that as our scripture for this morning. That parable talent is taken from Matthew the 25th chapter, and I'll be reading the 14th through 30th verses from the King James Version. For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents. Now a talent is a measure of money back then. I'm not exactly sure what the denomination was. 20 years worth of wages. That's a considerable sum of money. Now he gave him 5 talents. So that's 5 times 20 years worth of wages. And unto another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability. And straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them other 5 talents. He grew it, he doubled it. And likewise he that had 2, he also gained other 2. He doubled his. But he that had received 1 went and digged in the earth and hid his Lord's money. He said, I got a hole in the back. He was like the guys in the Rifleman. Why do I can just stick it in the mattress and I'm good. After a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained them as 5 talents more. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. Then he which had received 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew thee, thou art a hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. I haven't taken no chances with your loot. I was afraid, and I went and hid thy talent in the earth. Lo, there thou, that is thine. Here it is. It's yours. We good, right? The Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gathered where I have not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore have put my money to the exchangers. Now we know that we can do deposits and exchanges now. And then at my coming I should have received mine own with usury, or with interest. Take therefore the talent from him and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. Didn't seem fair. For unto everyone that hath shall be given. Unto everyone that hath shall be given. But from him that hath not shall be taken away, even that which he hath. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Took away the little bit he had. Now, 20 years of salary isn't a little bit, but he could have had so much more. Let's focus on that one. We see the one that had 5 and doubled that, using all of his full faculties, all of his spiritual gifts, his awareness and everything else. He was able to double that. The one that had 2, even where there are 2 or 3 assembled, there I am in the midst. The one that had 2 was able to take it and use it. But the one that had 1, and he said it right up front, I was afraid. I was afraid. So many times when we make decisions, every time when we make decisions out of fear, we make the wrong one. He thought he was being safe. Playing it safe, not taking any risk. But his master, our master, the master ourselves, all these stories about our consciousness, and we know this from our truth teachings, that it's really all about us, what goes on inside of us, our state of mind, what's happening within ourselves. Those times when we are untruthful to ourselves, when we are fearful of an outcome, we waste our talent. We dig a hole. He said that just by, you did more work going out there and digging a hole and getting your shovel and going out to the tool shed and your pickaxe and digging it deep enough so that it wouldn't get wet and everything, covering it up, tamping it back down and making sure nobody saw you. You did more work than if you just went over to the bank change, to the check cashing place and put it in and said, let me get some, I'll allow you to have it, and just come back with some interest. Now, the Jews themselves weren't allowed to charge each other interest. They weren't allowed to charge their brothers interest, because that was considered a sin. But they could charge everybody else interest. Well, and that's what they established themselves in the banking world. You heard of the Rothschilds and so forth. There was another bank that was very famous called the Medici, in Renaissance Italy. Florence and so forth, they funded the Renaissance. All the great paintings that we know from Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo and Raphael and all those great masterpieces and masterworks were funded by this one family, the Medicis, who also set up popes, and we're going to set our own family up in here. They created a legacy of themselves based off of banking, understanding money. And that's why Jesus talked about it so much, because money is something that's very important for us to have an understanding of. Don't think of it as just as we've heard the scripture, for the love of money is the root of all evil. Most of us even misinterpret that or misread that one. We always say, for money is the root of all evil. But money itself has changed over the years. There was one time when Manhattan was purchased for beads and shells. The currency can change, but it is a state of mind or attitude or something about substance, divine substance. It's just an expression of that, so that we can manufacture and create what we need. Jesus was able to master substance to the effect that he could feed 5,000 when he needed to. But money allows us to have that material thing, to have some security in our consciousness. And it's just a manifestation of where our consciousness is. So this person was operating out of fear and dug a hole and placed it in there and wasted his talents. Now we see that on two different levels. We see that as the wasting of the money, making unwise decisions. I'm blessed enough that sometimes it takes somebody with a mindset that's better than yours to handle finances. If you're in a partnership, one person may have a better sense of how to control that than another. I'm fortunate enough to have married someone who has a better sense of that than I do, because often I was making emotional decisions based off of what I like right there, what I like, I could do this, I could do that. But somebody who can instill some discipline to make sure that Susie Orman type thing, afford or not afford, denied. It's not always good hearing that, denied. But you appreciate it when you see yourself finally beginning to come out of the hole that you had buried yourself so deeply in. You dug a hole, and not only did you put the talent in there, you put yourself in the hole right along with it. There's some people who can identify. I'm only talking to myself. But if I step on your toes, it's only because you're in my shoes. Oftentimes we waste potential. And when we hear the word talent, we don't think about money. We think about something else. We think about that inherent gifts that are within us. And that's a good thing, I guess, to translate it into that, because essentially that's what the talent we're talking about. The possibility of being able to do something. That money, that talent represented possibilities. With money, you can always make money. We say that those that got money get money. It's just like they said in the scripture. Those with are given more, and those without, it seems to be taken away. That seems to be a penalty for poverty. That you get the worst interest rates. If you're given credit at all, you get you have to pay everything with more money. So there's like a poverty for tax, a penalty for poverty. But we often squander our gifts for the same reason that he hid his money. Afraid. Fear. Afraid that if we take it out into the marketplace, it won't be worth anything. That what we have to offer won't be valued. And out of that insecurity, we bury our gifts, our talents, in a hole in our backyard, not allowing the world to see what we uniquely have to offer. We're content with going the safe route, or what we perceive to be the safe route, just like he thought he was doing the safe thing just by burying it. We bury our talents thinking that we are going the safe route, that we won't be exposed to ridicule, to criticism, that we won't bear ourselves, we won't be judged inadequate, that we won't be considered no talent. All of us are given at least one talent. All of us are given a measure of something that we can bring that is uniquely ours, that differentiates us from everything anybody else has to offer. How you choose to use that. Do you take it out like the one who was given 5 and allow it to multiply and double and expand, to experience the possibility that is inherent within you? Or do we bury it in a hole and allow the world to be denied because of our not sharing? They say that the cemetery is full of wasted potential. All the books that could have been written but weren't. All the music that could have been produced that wasn't. All the poems that might have been recited and stirred someone on to do something great and never heard. All the great sermons that could have been preached and inspired a generation. That generation wasn't inspired. And instead, we were inflicted with racism and sexism and all the other isms and schisms that may have been prevented by each person rising up to their potential and allowing their talents to shine. But yet they lay buried, literally, in a hole. Another scripture where Jesus talks about money is also in Matthew, the 17th chapter. In this one, just as it is this time of year, people are preparing W-9s and 1099s and W-2s and all this other sort of stuff, getting their taxes ready, preparing. And taxes were a heavy burden back then as well. They say nothing certain but death and taxes. It seems that is a certainty. And Jesus was approached by one of the disciples talking about a tax situation. He had a tax issue himself. So we're not alone. Everybody got tax issues. I remember when Obama was inaugurated, and about half of the people he selected for his cabinet, they were shot down because they had a tax issue. So even back then they had tax issues. So don't feel bad if you're dealing with the IRS or anything else. But Jesus also had a solution for that. And when they were come to Capernaum, they that received tribute money came to Peter and said, "Doth not your master pay tribute?" He said, "Yes." And when he was coming to the house, Jesus prevented him, saying, "What thinkest thou, Simon? Of whom do the kings of the earth take custom or tribute? Of their own children or of strangers?" Peter said unto him, "Of strangers." Jesus said unto him, "Then are the children free? Notwithstanding, lest we should offend them, go thou to the sea and cast a hook and take up the fish that first cometh up. And when thou hast opened his mouth, thou shalt find a piece of money. That take and give unto them for me and thee." Jesus was saying, this is our land. This is our place. We really don't owe them anything, but just to keep the peace, just to make sure all is good, so they won't have anything bad to say. Go out there, catch a fish, and look in the mouth, and there you'll find the money to square us up. Now, we can take that literally, and there's always the possibility of that being the case, because when we're dealing with someone who creates divine substance out of nothing, of course, that could be the case. But according to how we were taught by Dr. Rocco Errico, that was an idiom, a figure of speech, a colloquialism that meant, you're a fisherman, Peter. That's what you do. You want to take care of what is owed. Do what you do. Do you. Go fish. Do what you do best, and that will provide you the funds to take care of what we need to do. Same thing that Jesus was talking about in that parable before. Do you. Take your talent. Don't bury it. What is it that you do best? You may not be a fisherman, Lawrence. I don't know if you are an angler, if you get out there. It may not be what you do, but what is it that you do? Creating events, creating experiences. You know how to do that. Keith knows how to produce music. He knows how to arrange lyrics, and he knows how to make hit songs. He knows how to do that. Find what it is that you do. Find that talent that you've been given. Maximize it to its fullest potential. Create the opportunity. Utilize divine substance to create and shape the experience that you're looking for. It's all about faith. The question is, who do you have faith in? A lot of people didn't have faith in banks. If you ever saw the movie It's a Wonderful Life, you saw that there was a run on the bank, on the savings and loans. When people wanted to withdraw their money, and because it became a spiraling effect, that confidence was lost. That's all the financial industry is, a confidence game. Do you have faith in it? I don't know if you've seen the Wolf of Wall Street. That is a wonderful movie. But it was all about confidence. He was able to instill confidence in these worthless penny stocks, companies never heard of, didn't know what their product was, but because he could talk a good game and get them to invest, he convinced them to put their faith in him. Who are you putting your faith in? The scripture tells us to bank on ourselves, to take that to the bank. What are you taking to the bank? Take that faith to the bank. Faith in yourself, faith in your possibility, faith in your potential. Invest in yourself to get the best return. Invest with faith in yourself. Faith knowing that you were made in the image and likeness of God, that you are co-creators with God, that the same divinity that was within Jesus is within you, the same accessibility to divine substance is yours. What are you creating? Are you digging a hole, or are you taking yourself to the bank? Faith.